Hey, hey, how are you? So, this is going to be episode 50, which I'm like, what? Episode 50? I just want to say to each of you, thank you so much for listening, tuning in every week, whether you watch on YouTube or you are listening in your car or on your run or however you listen. I just really want to say I really appreciate you, each and every single one of you. Um, so thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Every time I sit down and record an episode, whether it's by myself or with, and I'm interviewing someone else, I'm always thinking about you. How can I create more value in your life? How can I educate and teach in a simple, like break complex things down in simple ways and just share more of the knowledge that I have learned over the years and pass that on to you. So I want to say thank you so much for being here and for tuning in and for listening. Also, I want to say celebrating myself for continuing to keep going, right? I think sometimes in the beginning, I mean, I love podcasting, but I think sometimes in the beginning, we sometimes want that external validation. And I just want to say, like, I'm so proud of myself. And I hope that each of you celebrate yourself, whatever it is that you're doing, you're celebrating yourself, the milestones all along the way. You're not just withholding the celebrations until the very end. And I do want to say, Mom, if you're listening or you're watching, that I love you. I'm so grateful for you. This episode is about reflectors, and it might make me cry right now. But human design has changed my life, and my mom is a reflector. And once I learned about human design and I learned that my mom was a reflector, it really changed everything for me. So I love you, Mom. I'm so grateful for you. I'm so glad that our relationship has changed so much over the years. And I truly am grateful. And like I always say, like, you're one of my best friends. So I love you. Also, something fun that I recently found or was able to create through my podcast hosting platform is Buzzsprout. If you want, you can text me. And I'm a big texter. So if I think it's just like it'll now show up like if you're listening on, this is only from an auditory, like if you're just listening, it's not on YouTube. But if you are listening and right at the top, like at the very beginning in the description of the podcast, it will say like want to connect. You can send me a text, something like that, and you can just click on it and you can just say like if you want to send in your ideas for if you want me to talk about certain things or feedback for me or anything. I'm open. I'm willing to however you want to share whatever's going on in your life, or if you're wanting to give some feedback or what you else, have some ideas for you want me to talk about on the podcast or who you want me to bring on, be happy to do that. So this is episode 50. I'm so grateful for each of you. I'm so proud of myself. And Mom, this one's for you. Okay, my friends, how are we today? I've got Carmen Tuleta on the podcast. We're laughing because I'm like, we've been doing these series of types of human design, and we're on the last one, reflectors. So if you haven't listened to the previous ones, feel free to go and listen or watch on YouTube, because whether you are or not that type, I think it's so valuable to understand who are the people in your lives that might be that type, and you can support them by learning more about them. So thanks, Carmen. Last one. We're on a roll. Let's do it.
This has been so awesome. So a reflector. Oh my gosh. First, I'm going to go into, like I've done on all the past podcasts, is what type is. Type is actually how we move through the world. It's our energy, it's our aura, it is how we interact with the world, literally. So it's very foundational. Our type encompasses our strategy as well, which is part of our decision making style. So it's it's pretty huge. It's pretty foundational. It's kind of like our North Star we always come back to, or part of our North Star that we always come back to.
Yeah. So let's talk about reflectors, like they say, right? Like 1 to 2%, like depending on who you talk to, like of the population.
Mhm.
Um, and in terms of what is kind of their signature thing, like if they know that they're kind of off track, what are they might be feeling on a consistent basis? And then what are the ways that or the emotion that they feel when they're more in alignment?
So for them, it's disappointment when they are out of alignment. Um, they feel disappointment. I have never actually met a reflector to be able to tell you or have a conversation with them to understand what that disappointment might look like for them. So, because they are so rare, and when they're in alignment, it's excitement.
Mm. Mhm. I'm like, hey, mom, if you're watching, I don't know if you watch very much my YouTube channels or my podcast, but my mom is a reflector. And like, once I learned, like what it was one thing to learn about my human design, it was another to learn about my family's. And then once I learned about my mom being a reflector, that was just like the, I mean, I already was, compassion and love for her, but like really opened the floodgates because, like we talked about in the first podcast episode of manifestors, I think reflectors can be misunderstood. And I can't imagine, like, I consider myself pretty undefined, right? Like, I only have 4 out of 9 centers defined. And to be and live in a world where there's so much energy and you are undefined in every center, right? Um, the strength that I feel like that reflectors, have, and just it just shed a whole new light on having so much compassion and understanding, because I know what it feels like when I'm around a lot of people and I need to like rest and recover and recharge my energy. Like, I can't imagine having no centers or being open, um, as a reflector. And so I do see like what you're saying of like the disappointment. Like, and the thing I will say about reflectors, and pipe in Carmen here, of like having a few, this is almost similar to manifestors, of having a few trusted advisors. Because a lot of times they don't actually need any advice. They don't need, they just need someone to listen to them. And that is another thing that I learned because my mom does share a lot with me. And so once I learned, like, oh, she's not asking, like, that was like the joke in the house. Like, she would go to my dad and he's like, you just want to talk. You don't want me to, like, you know, fix anything. It's like they don't need that. They just want someone, a trusted advisor that they can confide in and share their feelings with, and then be able to bounce their ideas off of, and then go on their merry way.
Right. It's how they process, right? It's
Yeah.
how they come to their well, come to their decisions, I guess, in a sense. It's
Yeah.
not how they come to their decisions in terms of their strategy and authority, but it is how they understand themselves better.
Yeah. And also too, like, you think about how quickly we move. I think things are changing in the business world, but like for a long time, right? Like, things move pretty quickly. And for a reflector, like needing ample, they say the lunar cycle, but like needing like a good 2-3 weeks, depending on the I don't want to say the severity of the decision, right? Like, if you're a reflector and you're going to go
The
eat
temperature.
dinner, okay, right? Like, you
Yeah.
just pick your place you want to go to, right? But like, there were times when my mom would make, or her decisions would be very extended, and we always thought she was, what's the word, indecisive, but that's not at all what it is, right? It's just needing that time to, you want to talk a little bit about like how that shows up
Mhm.
for a reflector because of the no definition that they have.
Mhm. So, in terms of a decision, when you talk about like the level of a decision, I
Yeah.
like to think of it as how big of an impact is that decision going to make on our lives,
Yeah.
right? And then go from there. And a reflector is the only type that doesn't have an authority.
Mm-hmm.
I guess in a sense, their strategy is their authority to wait
Hmm.
the 28 days. And like you said, um, they don't necessarily have to wait the 28 days,
Yep.
right? It's that power of pause. Depending on the impact of the decision, it could come right away. And it depends on what's in the transits and how what people you have around you as well, because
Mhm.
environment is so impactful for a reflector.
Yeah, it's huge. And really, like Carmen's saying about, the 28 days, like it can even more, like you're saying, the temperature of the decision, right? Like, if you're thinking about moving someplace, that might take months to get to a place. And this is why it's so important of like not just understanding human design from an intellectual level, but from your body. Like, how do you feel in your body? Does this feel unsettling, or does this feel kind of at calm and at peace? And each of you, like, you're the only one that's going to be able to know what that feels like, and like when it feels like, air quotes, the right time to move, um but really with reflectors of like taking your time. And I don't think, here we go back to compassion in the business world and in the world in general, like, we don't allow much time for people to make up their mind, or to make decisions, or to all of it, right?
So one thing I found, like for a projector, and I think this would really help with a reflector as well, is saying, like, can I have a day or two
Yeah.
to
Yep.
slow the process down? One, it's going to make those people that are wanting the person, whatever type you may be, it will make them want that person more. That level of like desire for them will be more attractive. And it gives that person, that reflector, the time to actually sit with it and have some pause with it if there isn't 28 days or 2 weeks or what have you, right?
And also getting out of everyone else's aura. That's the other
Oh,
thing, right? Like,
that's
you know,
huge.
of being able to, I can't, like, and this is for all types too. It's like, if you feel like you're making a rush decision, then it's a no, right? It is a no
Mhm.
for now, until I get
Yep.
to a more calm, neutral place.
Hmm.
And trusting that, like, because here we go back to like how marketing is. It's right. It's like, it's hurry, rush,
Hmm.
buy, half off, all the
Hmm.
things. And like, we think we have such FOMO, right? Versus
Yeah.
everything is going to come to us at the exact perfect time for us, and trusting that. And so
Hmm.
if it feels too rushed, then it's a no, and something else is better that's going to come along. And allowing yourself to get out of everybody's aura, so you can actually process and think about like what feels good for you.
Hmm. And it said that when a reflector is getting out of someone's aura, it's great for them to go into nature because they are so connected to nature, innately. And like I said, I cannot speak for a reflector because I do not know a reflector, but it makes total sense, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Because the earth is grounding. And
Mhm.
how much grounding would that reflector have and releasing of the energy because they have zero centers defined. Like they'll have the gates, but that's it. So
Mhm.
they're taking on everybody else's energy, right? And nature is just so cleansing.
Oh, with disappointment, seeing that, like, I this would be a good conversation to ask my mom, but it's almost like you see like the amazingness in everyone, and then when people don't live up to that, like, that's what I've experienced with my mom. And so if you are a
Hmm.
reflector, right, like, you do see all of the humans at like their highest. And so that almost letdown is kind of what it feels like, of the
Hmm.
disappointment when you're met with like, it didn't you're with someone and it didn't work out the way you thought it would, or um yeah.
So I know we've talked about this in the past about actually feeling that
Mhm.
emotion. So say the not self theme of any of the types, right?
Yep.
And actually feeling into that emotion. And I was reading something the other day and it said that it takes 90 seconds for an emotion to fleet. So sitting in that disappointment to understand why that disappointment came is huge. And that's pause, right? That's
Yeah.
again pause.
Yeah. I think also too, and I know we're talking about specific types, and then we keep bringing it back to everything, because it is right. Like, we have all of the
We're all
chart, and
human.
we're all human, of like how much of our attachment to things right, leads to that disappointment versus going into things for the fun of it. Carmen talked about, I don't
Mhm.
remember which podcast episode it was, right? But like going into things for the fun. I think it was on the Projector
Yeah.
podcast, right? Like that's what
Oh,
you're
yep.
doing now. Like you're doing things
Mhm.
for the fun of it and like experimenting. Like what if we
Mhm.
actually looked at life through that lens? Like we dropped the seriousness and we were like, this could be fun. What could happen? Like
Mhm.
almost childlike wonder versus having such seriousness and attachment to an outcome of what we think it's going to look like. Because I was actually talking about this with someone else on the podcast of like, our minds are actually limiting, right? Like, if we don't put anything on it, like, what could actually happen
Oh.
versus we have this idea. And so then that's almost like what we create.
Mhm. Mhm. And there is other places in the chart where that comes up
Yeah.
as well. Like there's
Yeah.
the parts don't exist without the whole, and we are all human.
Yeah.
But back to the reflector, something that I want to stress is the people that they surround themselves with is going to um, be so huge for them, because if it's not a healthy environment, that's how they will feel,
Mm.
right? If they're people that aren't, for lack of a better word, positive or empowering,
Encouraging and empowering.
encouraging, exactly,
Yep.
that reflector isn't going to feel those things and reflect them back out into the world.
Yeah. Um, I'm so glad you said that because I just assumed that everyone knew that because I'm like an amazing person and I support my mom in that way. But honestly, like there are people that I'm so glad you said that because
Mhm.
it is, I can tell when she's talked to someone else and then I can tell when she's talked to me and how she
Mhm.
feels after the conversation or her level, like you're saying, of like encouragement or doubt or all of that, like that shows
Mhm.
up. And so, really, for the reflector, like you're not actually, you guys already know this, but like you're not asking for advice. You're almost acting of like you're just these trusted people in your life are just a sounding board to you and
Sounding board.
supporting you. And so
Yep.
really, I'm so glad you said that, Carmen, because it's like surrounding yourself with
Mhm.
people that are encouraging, empowering, and allow you to have your process too. Like that's the other thing of like I've noticed
Mhm.
sometimes some people will get frustrated with her and it's like that's just her process. She just needs to talk it out for a little bit and kind of get more clarity. And then
Yep.
and then once she's good, like once she's talked it out, she's like, I'm good, right? So
Yep.
allowing that and supporting people
Mhm.
in that way.
Yep. A supportive community is, yeah, is huge for the reflector.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you want to say regarding reflectors?
Um, Other than they are fluid, because they are
Mm-hmm.
ever changing, right?
Mm-hmm.
They their energy changes with the people that they're around as well. So they could wake up one day and have a completely different mindset, a completely different outlook on things. So knowing that they're going to make these transitions is not only helpful for themselves, but for the people around them.
Yeah. Yep. It's interesting. You say things, and these are literally words that my family has said. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you're like a chameleon, or you, and it's just like,
Yeah.
yeah, and they kind of are, and that's okay,
Hmm.
right? Like we can either look at it from the lens of like, oh, I'm a chameleon, there's something wrong with me, or like, yeah, like I can be with anybody and kind of change
Hmm.
in my fluidity, and
Yes,
so it's such a gift.
it is. It is. And we talk about this all the time, that conditioning of making people wrong for how they
Mm,
function in the world. I think
yeah.
if the world knew human design, how different could it be?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think part of who we are is bringing that to the world.
Well, I think it's I love that Howard Thurman, and I'm going to paraphrase, quote, but he says like, ask not what you can do for the world, like ask what makes you come alive and then go do that. Like the world doesn't
Mhm.
need us to tell anyone else what to do, right? Like we need all of us to get in alignment, to be our highest selves, to be the most empowered, the most compassionate, loving, we already are all of those things, but like letting go and stripping all that
Mhm.
conditioning away so that we can shine, like that's what and I think human design, for each of us, that if all of us are living in our highest, like that's the best thing that we can do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love
So
that.
thank you so much, Carmen, for all of your time, your wisdom, your
Thank you.
knowledge, for sharing all of that with us. Where can people find you, learn more about you, all of the things?
Well, right now my website's on an overhaul, so um, that's coming. But I do have a link to book a session with me, so I can give that to you, and you can pop it in the show notes. And I do have an Instagram account. I'm also doing an overhaul there, but I'm still there, and I'm still showing up there, with a little bit of a twist on my how I look at human design and how I help people. And I have so much fun over there. I'm
I was
starting
like,
to really
you
enjoy
gotta
it.
go watch Carmen because she's so fun. She like throws twists on things and she's just, yeah, it's fun to like talk about things in such a fun, easeful, like not serious way. And Carmen does a
It
great
is.
job at that. Yeah.
We have enough serious in life. Let's
Oh my
have
gosh.
some fun,
Let's have some
right?
fun. Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
thank you everybody for listening. Thank you for watching. And thank you, Carmen, again. I appreciate it.
Thank you.